My next sketch is going to be this spectacular orange tiger lily, and I'm again starting by getting a feel for the overall shape, so this flower can again be put into a round shape, and then I'm figuring out the basic shapes, and I think the petals of this flower are almost like ribbons that come from the middle of the flower and then sort of grow out of this middle and then fold at the end, fold around and sort of curl. And while I'm sketching those shapes, I'm trying to be mindful about the different angles, about the sizes of the petals. They're quite different. There are 3 smaller petals and 3 larger petals. And as you can see, I'm taking away a few of the pencil lines. I've started with very loose pencil lines, and now for the refined version, I actually know where everything goes, and I can put down very smooth and confident pencil lines. So I still try to be mindful about the angles and the volumes and how these petals sit in space. And what actually shows the 3-dimensionality is those landing stripes that you can see on 3 of the bigger petals. So these will help to give a more 3-dimensional look to the entire thing. And I'm also thinking about how this is something that grows in an organic way, so from the middle to the outside, and actually try to draw like this too. So I'm working my way from the middle to the outer edges. And the last small elements that I will add are those stamens, again growing out from the middle, and those are a bit hard to see in the reference, but I will have to preserve the lighter color for those in the painting stage. So now I'm mixing my colors, and I'm adding in a yellow and an orange. So I want to have a brighter yellow and then sort of a middle orange and a tiny bit of a darker orange. I'm trying to keep my palette light, so I want to create a very vivid, vibrant flower. I don't want to make it too dark or too muddy. And I'm testing out the paints. And I start in the center with the lightest color, so this vivid yellow here. I've actually forgotten a defining pencil line here, but I try to work from the center out to into the petals. And what I want to do is drag a bit of this yellow into those landing stripes, into those yellow areas on the petals. And then I want to fade this into an orange. So I'm adding a bit of water around those edges so that I will have a soft gradient. Then I'm picking up this middle orange and I'm adding it very carefully, but also quite loosely with my big brush. So I'm using the biggest brush that I have here. And I'm just dropping in the orange pigment, and it sort of mingles with the yellow and spreads a bit. And again, you can see how the pigment is pooling here because my surface is at an angle. And I'm working around those light areas, so I want to preserve those landing stripes in the middle. So I'm actually quite sure these are landing stripes for insects, right? And so I'm working my way around the flower, around the different petals. Here I have to be a bit careful because there are actually those light elements that I want to keep light. So I don't want to paint over them. And now I'm actually picking up a bit of pigment from those areas where the pigment has pooled slightly. And there are some areas where I want to have more intense orange. So I'm dropping in more pigment. It's all still wet, so I can do this, and it will just flow into the rest of the painting. So as the orange parts of the flower are drying, I can use my small brush to add the stalk and also the bud here. So this green and orange or yellowish parts of the bud are again sort of mingling, so I can do this wet in wet. And it might be hard to see. There's yellow and there's also a bit of orange on the left side that I've introduced here. And for my second orange layer, I use a darker but still really vibrant orange. So I don't want to dull this down or make it muddy in any way. And I drop in the paint as intense as I can. And just at the base, I'm dropping in a tiny amount of Perylene Violet for these dark areas that are near the the yellow center. And I'm doing this for each petal, again being mindful about the shapes that I see in my reference. And I'm working around the lighter areas in the flower, and on each petal I'm dropping in just a little bit of this darker pigment here. And this can be a bit tricky with a large brush, but I'm taking my time. And the consistency of the paint is a bit less diluted than in the first layer, so I don't want to reactivate or get weird blossoming. I sort of want this flowing but controlled state for the paint. Again, adding those vibrant orange areas to really let those petals shine. And it gets a bit tricky where things are overlapping. So I'm adding a bit of water first, and then I think I might have to pick out those areas again. So I've actually painted over the stamens, and I need to remove this later. But the important element that I want to introduce here again are these darker drops of paint that I can only put in there as long as the paint layers are still wet. So I'm dropping in a bit more paint in each petal. And I think this is beautiful. So this flower, my flower painting looks a bit lighter than what you can see in the reference, but I think this will actually look more vibrant and more interesting. So as the rest is drying, I'm starting to add in shadow areas, so like the folded petal there. And as everything has dried here, you can see how I'm removing the darker paint from those little elements in the middle there. So I'm working a bit more on the bud, and I've switched to my smaller brush, and I'm actually starting to add in details like these frilled edges here. And I'm not terribly concerned with absolute realistic depiction of these edges. I want to keep the lines in a certain flow. And I'm actually quite pleased with how these turned out. And I'm using my same dark mix to pick out a few areas that need more contrast and where I can darken the color to show where there are overlapping elements or actual edges. So I really find a few lines here and a few areas that I have laid in before. And I'm doing this all around every petal, also on the bud a little bit. So now this is a stage where I'm adding in interesting details. Also here, those small elements, those small stalks in the middle. And this is actually what holds the sketch together in a way. So these small details and these textural areas will attract the viewer's eye and will be what is interesting to the viewer, but it's important that they're not everywhere. So you have a few of those areas, but you don't want to have texture everywhere. So a few of those defining lines or dots will be fine. And I'm seeing already I should have stopped here. It's so hard to stop. But I'm, again, very pleased with how this turned out, and it was a lot of fun to paint this tiger lily.